Hello guys, I'm back inside my 2007 F150 FX4 truck I've had so many problems with. Latest problem is I installed these new LED headlights and they're great. I've had LEDs before. I like them much better than HIDs. The problem with these is twofold. First, the polarity doesn't work, and then second, this is kind of just a thing with Fords. When you have the brights on, then the the fog lights don't show up. So the first one is I'm not in high beam mode, but yet my high beams are on, and when I turn the high beams on, it switches to the low beams. So I need to reverse the polarity, but I also want the fog lights to stay on when the high beams are activated, which they do turn off. I'll have to turn the truck on in order to show you that, so let's do that. So right now, technically, the low beams are on. Turn the truck on. Out of my truck. And you see that the fog lights are on when the low beams are on. But when you turn on the high beams, so the high beams are on now. You go back out, and the fog lights have turned off. So we want the fog lights to stay on when the high beams are on. So we're going to fix that, and I'll show you how. First, when working with electrical, it's always a good idea to disconnect the battery. So I'm going to take the negative terminal off the battery, and that's so that I don't get any shorts or sparks where I don't expect them to. And we are going to be working with a ground wire. I had some sparks earlier that reminded me that we need to disengage the battery first. It's always a good idea. Okay, with that off, we're ready to go. We're going to be working on the passenger side of the truck today. So we're on the passenger side of the truck. I've already removed my floor mat and pushed my seat all the way back so it's easier to get into. And now down here in the corner where your right foot would be if you're the passenger, this is where the fuse box is. So there's this little tab you can pull, and this comes off in two different sections. So we'll put that aside for now. And this is the fuse box itself. So down at the bottom, you can get a screwdriver and put it in this little hole, or you can kind of just reach underneath and pull forward, and this will just come right off. And this is your fuse box. So on the box itself, it'll tell you where all the fuses are and what numbers they are. But for our headlights and our fog lights, they're up here. This is for, let's see if I can get my finger in there. That's what she said. So there's this 10 amp, which is high beam and low beam, or the other way around. But then this is actually for your high beams, I believe, is this 20 amp right there. But this fuse box in the middle, this little relay, is what we're going to be working with. So when you're looking at, there's 3 gray at the top. Next to the yellow 20, you want to pull this one out right here. So that's what we're going to be working with. So I'm just going to set that aside for now. But we're actually going to want to remove this kick plate right here because we're going to have to get into a ground wire in the back. Now this one can be a little bit finicky. Let me get some better light on that. You can see it's connected to the little weather stripping and then this little kick panel floor plate thing. So there's also a tab right here at the top. So if you put your hands, you can see that tab. If you put your hand right behind and just pull straight forward, that one will release. Then we have to release all the other ones, but it's easier to get to if you just take the floor piece off, and off with it should come that weather stripping. And you can kind of peel it to the side for now, and then it will release a lot easier. So if you continue to pull this off, it will release. Now when you're putting it back, it's important to line this up with that hole there, because if you don't and you try to just force it on, then this little part is going to break off. So it's easier when you're going back to line that up first and then push it all. But what we remove that for is we expose. So here's the fuse box, and just up a little bit you'll see this ground, which is green around it. That's where we're going to be putting in our wire, is into that ground. Now you need to make sure that that is nice and snug, because if it's loose, your truck will shut off when you open the door. So you want to make sure that that's nice and tight. So moving on, we're going to look at the fuse that we took out, or the relay. So on this, there's two that face horizontal and two that face vertical. And so we're going to go to the top one here. So when the vertical or the horizontal ones are facing just like this, this is the one right here that we're going to bend it to the right and attach a wire to it. So let's go to that point. When my parents moved, I got this from my dad. It's a lot of electrical connections. So we're looking for a female adapter that looks like this. And if I can focus, maybe not. Let's go over here. All right, so here's our female end, and that is going to slide right on to our piece after we bend it, of course. But this piece will connect just like this. It'll slide on, and then we can connect a wire to this end, and then we will connect another end like this that will go into the ground, and we need to make sure that this is big enough to fit around the ground area. So on the little relay itself, I've bent that over to the side so that when we connect that female piece, the wire will run off to the side of the fuse box, and this wire will run to the ground that we showed earlier. And to make sure I have the right size connection, I'm going to back this ground screw off, which happens to be a 8mm. And I just got my socket and wrench, and loosen that up and take the bolt off so we can see what size fits best. So from what I found in the little connections I got from my dad, is this is a number 10, and it's not big enough to fit around the bolt. This is a 3/8, and it's way too big. It's a lot bigger than the bolt, but I think that for now, at least from what I have, it will work. It will go completely around the bolt head and cancel that ground there. So I'm going to use this for my application, but when you're getting some maybe from Lowe's or Harbor Freight or wherever you're getting your connections from, that you might want to get a size just maybe an 11 or 12. I think they come in evens, so I think it might be a size 12 would fit around that bolt just fine, but not be nearly as big as the 3/8. But this is what I'm going to use just because that's what I have, and I have that ground wire unhooked, and I have to put everything back together just to drive over to Lowe's, but that's probably what you guys should do. All right, I have cinched the ground wire cable onto the two ends. And so this end will of course attach to the relay, and then this will attach to the ground. I don't know that it's terribly important, but I did make sure that the flat end of this was on the flat side so that when this gets pushed in, it's as flat as possible. And so let's go install. I have my ground bolt around both of the original one that goes to the truck, and then my new wire that runs out. You need to remember to cinch that down all the way, or your engine's going to turn off when you open up your door. Had that experience already. Okay, so I have the wire hooked up to the ground, and I have my fuse. This is a replacement fuse because I broke the other one's little prong. You can see right here, I had to come in with some wire cutters and clip this plastic out so there would be enough room, light on that, for the wire to come out like that. I'm actually going to push it a little further so it's not close to the fuse. So I am going to replace this with it's a much smaller one I got for $7 on AutoZone. So learn from my mistake. Clip this area if you want to do this so that the wire can come out. So now it's all hooked up, and let's go test. And of course, the last step to reattach your negative terminal so that your lights and engine will start. Okay, so I have the truck running, and I do not have the lights on, or at least the high beams on. And I'm coming out to the truck here, and we'll see that my headlights are on and my fog lights are both on both sides. So now we're coming back to the truck. We're gonna flip on the high beams. You can see that little indicator. Now remember, on my truck the high beams and low beams are swapped, which I will figure out later, but you'll see that the fog lights are still on and the high beams are on as well. So that does the trick. So I just ran the wire up through the top. There's a little notch in the cover, so it just ran right out. And I just made sure to tuck my wire out of the way so that when I put the pieces back together, it's not going to snag or get in the way of anything. So I will probably buy another fuse or another relay. You see the one that I put in was a little bit shorter, and I will just bend the prong on that one and reconnect and make sure I crimp it down so it's nice and secure. I might even do some electrical wire just to be safe, and then we'll call it good. So hopefully this video has helped, and that's how I was able to get the fog lights to stay on while the high beams are running.